Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Dem Boys Watch Footy. It's your boy E, your boy PJ, and in front of the show, we got our boy Marley Wilson. How's it going, Al?
Good man, good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure for having you over. This is your now third episode, right?
Yeah, we were just saying that, and I ain't going nowhere, man. Anytime you send the invite, I'm there. I'm there.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, PJ, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. I just sprained my ankle playing basketball, but I heard he was going to be on, so I'm dedicated. I'm icing my leg right now, but part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast was to help grow the game in the United States. You know me, I'm always like about the US perspective. You guys make fun of me because I don't know about the international clubs enough. So great to have him on and excited to ask him some questions.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, want to thank you both for being able to join today. And then as well, want to thank all of our listeners who have been giving us a lot of love and a lot of support. We've been growing on YouTube as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for giving us a listen on there. We just hit over 1.k on YouTube, so much appreciated, much love. Thank you all again for giving us a listen there. And wanted to hurry up and jump us into some very big topics, especially with the domestic seasons within Europe as well as other parts of the world outside of the US. As we know, MLS is now they're raging on in their schedule. But there are a lot of different questions going on with this Club World Cup that is coming to the United States this summer. A Club World Cup, some of the first matches are going to take place June 16th, June 17th. And kind of want to just dive right in with you gentlemen. Probably I want to hear from you first. Has there been any conversation with you, as well as the North California Association that you're a part of, talking about some of the Club World Cup, all of the different clubs coming over to the United States? Has there been any synergy kind of acting there? Have you heard anything? What's the schedule you're in?
No, unfortunately, it hasn't, and it's obviously a little disappointing just because with our youth population here, teams that are obviously wearing these jerseys, kids are wearing these jerseys of these teams have the opportunity to go see some of their teams. I think, and some California in the Rose Bowl. I think is it PSG that are playing down there.
Yep.
So you can only imagine how many youth soccer players would flock to that game, and I'm sure if there was some kind of activations around it, it would be awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we started doing some of our predictions for who's going to actually try to make it through some of these group stages, and our main thing was really looking at if any of these clubs, these international clubs, are going to have a big following coming to the United States this summer. Like looking at teams like Palmeiras, you have Leon from Mexico, Botafogo from Brazil. Like, how are you getting their fans to actually experience the game? Like, I love the fact that the U.S. has the infrastructure. This is the testing ground for the World Cup, but are you really getting the actual fans to come over? And usually, when you try to get fans, you usually get different soccer associations involved, such as NorCal Soccer. Like you have different, like Pasadena Youth Soccer, things like that. So I'm just surprised that there hasn't just been more opportunity for your team to be able to kind of go. You know?
Yeah, I can always touch base with our counterparts down in Southern California that run Cal South, and I know some clubs directly down there, and I'm more than happy to reach out and see if there's any activations that are taking place. But I look at it this way: if you ever go back to when this competition started, I think it's like 20 years old. I don't know the next time it's going to be hosted in the US.
Exactly.
So
Maybe never.
I'm just thinking that to myself, like, hey, could we do something up here in the northern part where it's just watch parties or anything of that magnitude, just because it's not always here in the US? I know we're not going to have a direct touch point with it, but these are the types of things I think as a state association, especially I've shared my passion with you so many
Yeah.
times in the show, but that's what we're here to do. Like bring us the touch points and we will push it out. And
Yeah.
that's why I think we're so important as a state association trying to grow the game to make these things happen.
Sure. Yeah, PJ, I don't know how you feel about it, but during our time when we were over at Major League Soccer, this would be like the big time to start giving a lot of different teams calls to try to get them to come out. I don't know if the sales has changed or if FIFA has, whoever's running per club has changed, but usually this is kind of where we made our bread and butter as salespeople with MLS back
Those
in the day.
big games. Yeah, working for the Revolution, we were not when the Revolution were playing the Rapids, it was not a very big draw. So this would have been exciting. If I was still working for the Revolution right now, it probably wouldn't matter because they would not be in the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
Gillette might get some games. But yeah, I mean, first, it's great to hear from Marlon. I mean, North California is such a large area. The population's probably larger than a lot of countries that go to the World Cup. So it's exciting to hear your perspective. Just broad overview before we get more granular. I think the number one thing, and I think this is by far the biggest factor about the Club World Cup, is are we going to see these teams bring their A squad? I think that's going to make the big difference. And I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's going to dictate a lot of the sales and stuff. I remember like watching when Messi came over and some of the games where he was supposed to play, then didn't, and fans were disappointed. So I don't know what your guys' opinion on that is, but I think that's going to be a big
I was
factor.
a ticket purchaser of that, by the way.
Oh, you did? What
Yeah,
did you
I
play?
went to the it was at Levi Stadium where it was Argentina playing Chile.
Mm.
And then I wasn't too disappointed because obviously Alexis Sanchez and certain players, right? But you're right, I was a recipient of the whole Messi thing, and now he's here. I think it's a little bit easier to watch a game, right?
Have you been to an Inter Miami match?
I haven't.
Oh,
I
okay.
could have went the other day. They played the Quakes.
Yeah.
Given it's a working week, I know that we're involved in the sport, but I don't know if I'd be a responsible leader going to that and then struggling to serve our youth community the next day. I was actually, someone said it to me. We actually had a board call for a group. They're like, "Why did you schedule it the same time as Messi's playing?" And to their credit, hey, the fact that someone can get on a call and say that is cool, right? It's not like,
For sure.
hey, the Super Bowl's on. Like they say, look, dude, you scheduled it June when Messi was playing. So to their credit,
I had
it's
tickets
kind
to
of
the
a cool thing,
Quakes.
right?
No, seeing like that evolution where the Quakes match, even though it's preceded by Messi, even that is still a big win for U.S. soccer just being within the cultural zeitgeist. Like it's been a long time coming trying to get that like in there, so it's pretty dope to see. But some of the games that I'm seeing right now, Inter Miami, Al Ali, you have Bayern versus Auckland City, Chelsea versus Lyon, Flamengo versus S Tunisia, Dortmund versus Fluminense. Like, I want these teams to succeed when they come to US. I'm gonna go to probably two matches this summer. I gotta be able to see some club teams that I've never seen in my life. Probably unless I go visit their countries, I'm never gonna see them play. Like on the off chance I haven't been able to plan an entire trip around a soccer match or going to a soccer stadium. The only time I did that was to an Arsenal match. So I was just like, if I want to go see the
You want to see the
Mom
Sun Devils, the
yeah,
Mamelodi Sun Devils.
yeah, the Mamelodi Sundowns. That's their name.
Sundowns. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Or the Urara Red Diamonds. Like, you have to plan to go see these teams. And the fun fact of Club World Cup being in the United States, just like how the World Cup is, back when the World Cup was being hosted in '94, you get to see things that you've never seen before. Like, that's the entire enjoyment of the sport to me. Just like getting that global sense, that global feel. And all the other issues that we're dealing with in the country be damned. Like, still, if it's afforded to us, we should be able to partake and enjoy it. And that's the whole point of this podcast, to just like make sure people are aware that these amazing things are happening.
I'm super excited about it. I think that all the teams outside of Europe are going to bring their A squad. Like usually the Brazilian teams that do well in this tournament bring their A squads and go pretty deep. So my question to you guys is, do you think like the big European teams like Dortmund and PSG, do you think they're going to really bring it? Because I think there's a pretty substantial prize pool. It's like 120 million, and like
Yep.
I mean the Champions League is only like one like 80 or something like that. So it's an
I think,
easier road too. So
yeah.
what do you guys think? Are the your big European teams going to try to bring it and go full throttle and gut it?
I think the teams that haven't done well in their regular season may have to, right, and be forced to. I hate to bring this up, because I nearly wore my Arsenal jersey today, but I think PSG may have to, right? They may have to, right? Because then you start looking at, I think, is it City are the holders? Is that right? Yeah. So like when you look at, teams that have not done well, may have the opportunity to come into this. I know Ronaldo was praying that his team was going to be in it, right? So I think that to answer, PJ's question, I think those bigger clubs kind of have to, because they need to at least show something this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if those bigger sides that haven't won a trophy do that. And I think the sides that may have won a trophy this year may take their foot off the pedal and use it as an opportunity to figure out going into the transfer window what they're going to do, right?
For sure. I mean, I'm not straying too far off you, Marl. What I'm seeing, PFG wins the Champions League. I feel as though they'll bring probably half of their full squad just because of how many matches that they went through this season. But if you have, let's say, Borussia Dortmund over in Germany, they're going to have to. They just squeaked into Champions League play this last week of the season. If you have a chance to win 110 million from a summer tournament to kind of just transform your transfer strategy, you go from a selling club to a buying club, like just like that. Also, you get like, let's say, my dad AC. They're playing Man City. They're the first match on June 18th. You get a chance for an opportunity. Let's say you don't make it you get out of the first round. So you make it into that round of 16 and suddenly somehow you've already made $50 million. You probably made all of the money that you could have made within your full season revenue right there.
It's no joke, yeah.
Like you're giving these smaller teams chances to be able to catch up to some of these world powers. I love how it's explained within what's that show with Wrexham AFC where they're talking about trying to make it to the Premier League, being promoted, and you're essentially going against teams with sovereign wealth nation, like money, like. That's what some of these teams are going to have to do this summer. And a Boca Juniors versus a Benfica is a completely different matchup than a Porto versus a Chelsea, you know? So I definitely think half of the teams that haven't played that much football are definitely going to bring their A game. And the other half, the ones that are from smaller countries with smaller profiles, they're going to bring everything because this opportunity to win this much money over a summer tournament, there's no way a sporting director or a club president is going to say, guys, you can actually have a summer off. No, they want that cash.
Yeah. If like a team like Auckland City were to get, the quarterfinals, semifinals and get 30, $40 million, that could, change the future of the clubs. Even for a team like Juventus, that's still like a big transfer that they can bring in or training grounds or whatnot.
For sure. All right. I want to get last thoughts on this. Marley, do you have any predictions for the Club World Cup outside of you getting your team trying to get into the activation? But I kind of want to understand, like, from your viewpoint, especially because you have these the association like brain points. Kind of want to see, like, what do you think a success is going to be for the Club World Cup within the United States? What is going to be a really big factor into hindering its success? Like, you have the access to be able to kind of view it from different viewpoints. So I'd love to hear your final word on this.
Well, I think one of the things I do like about any sport and any sport as it progresses into a tournament style, you typically then start to gather around, whether it be your state, your country, right? So as this tournament kicks off and we look at, what connections are there to the US and I think Club America are playing LAFC, right? I think that's just gonna be like everyone's gonna be watching at least that game. And then as the competition progresses, it's like where the LAFC then end up in it and maybe a Rapids fan becomes an LAFC fan for the day.
Right.
But I think that's the beautiful thing around it because then you start looking at like if Club America make it, are you going to be rooting for PSG or Club America, right? And that will come like maybe I'm just a PSG fan, so guess what? I'm just going to do it. But then you say, you know what? I like PSG, but you know what? Club America, I'd rather see them do it. So that synergy, right, between US, Canada, and Mexico, and it goes back to the whole Unidos, that they put together. I think I can't say, but I don't want to talk for the country, but I would like to hope that everyone puts their support behind the closest to the US, which obviously would then be Mexico and Canada, just as a natural involvement versus a European team. Obviously, I'll say it, on air today, but I'll probably end up doing the same, right? I'm trying to grow the game here. I want it to be successful. So, man, if LAFC, like I say, like I'm going to be a fan for that day, right? That's why we're cool fans, right? That's why we're cool fans,
right?
We're not owners. We're not, we're fans. So that's the team that I'll be supporting.
I feel it. Yeah, fandom sometimes just takes on different places. And even though we're both Arsenal fans, like, I still would love to be able to say, like, Colorado Rapids, we have a chance. Or, like, New York Red Bulls, even though they're not in the tournament, they have a chance. I would love to see Seattle have a chance. Like,
their group is brutal.
They've been one of the biggest ambassadors.
Yeah, they're consistent. They're the most consistent.
Yeah,
right?
I would love to see them be able to have a chance. I mean, their group is a group of death, but they got a chance. So definitely agree with you there. PJ, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is to see that I would love to see is like, consistently packed stadiums. I don't know if we're going to get that, but for example, last year with the Copa America, you'd see like the Argentina Mexico games like packed, and then like the smaller games like 5,000 people there. So again, I'm not sure, but for me, if like most of the games are pretty full, that would be a success. And as an MLS fan, I'm not really like a Revolution fan. No shade on my old team, but I just want to see. I mean, I think Inter Miami might have a chance to get out of the group. I don't know. The Sounders don't, but I would like to see them at least do decent.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. All right. I want to thank you all again. And then the listeners would love to hear your thoughts on what do you think is going to be super successful about the Club World Cup? What do you think is going to be an issue? Like there are definitely some really big roadblocks that we may have to deal with, but the fact that it's even taking place within the United States is a testament in itself. Like we are having 2 summers of amazing football just coming to the United States. So I'm very glad to be a part of this generation. All right, our next topic. I want to send this over to Marley because we were having a good conversation offline about the U.S. youth soccer and different federations, different things that are happening within the United States there. So, really want to get your thoughts and kind of let you just lead us here over at Dem Boys Watch Footy. Marley, you take it away.
Yeah, I want to kick off by congratulating Tom Condone, ex-colleague at US Youth Soccer. We were GMs at US Youth, and he's now the new CEO. His title from interim got removed, I think, at their last board meeting. So congratulations to Tom. Hopefully now he can get to shine his wings. And I think, sometimes they call it timing, sometimes they call it the right place at the right time. But, Tom has, I've been gone 4 years and Tom's remained at US Youth. And I think the conversation that is happening, we'll take Tom's name out for a second, but is US Youth going to be talking to US Club? And what does those conversations mean? It's a big country. There's a lot of, and I'll put this first because we sometimes say it's about the kids, but there's a lot of money involved, power, right? And it goes from there. So, Tom, obviously bringing him back into the fold has a hell of a job ahead of him. And I think what he's got to navigate through is, how can he grow the game in a way that keeps the ecosystem healthy? And that's going to be his biggest challenge. I have a question for you guys, right? I know I come on here and I'm meant to be share my thoughts. What are your thoughts when you look at US club, because maybe 20 years ago people didn't really talk about a US club. And then what are your thoughts on a US club today in the landscape, and what is your thoughts on the US youth today? So I'm gonna put it back to you guys because I feel like it's good to now have this
My question for
conversation.
you, that's not fair.
So go on, part one. What do you think about US club in our current landscape versus the US youth, and how could they work together?
PJ, I'll let you start off since that was your question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can give you perspective on like 20 years ago when I was in high school, believe it or not, because I grew up in the suburbs of Boston where soccer was actually huge, and I went to a high school where soccer was huge. We had people play at Trinidad national team, a lot of D1 players, but then it was mostly rich kids playing on the club teams, the Boston Bolts. They were expensive, so it was like a lot of wealthy kids in the suburbs. And like my experience, traveling, you see people playing all the time in cities, not necessarily organized. Like when I went to Brazil for the World Cup, people just like playing on the streets and stuff. And I have seen the game grow a lot just walking around the streets in New York where I live. But I know that that was a major problem, at least where I was from when I was playing soccer. So I mean, what do you think? Like, because I don't know enough about like right now. If you think that landscape has changed at our like is soccer still?
It's actually become much more deeper of a more wealthier type. I think it's a bigger conversation just talking about how some sports are made for the city compared to sports made for suburban spaces or spaces with a little bit more resources to be able to work with it. I wasn't a soccer kid growing up. I grew up with football and swimming and track and field. Those are the things that I kind of jumped into. But the kids that I knew that were soccer players that were, it was very far few in between within Baltimore City when I knew about the sport when I was growing up. So it was non-existent in the inner cities when I was growing up. Now, whenever I go visit home back in Baltimore, I see it all of the time, which is an amazing thing, seeing that growth in the city, because now you get to tap in an inner youth culture that never had that. The only thing that they had a chance to be able to go to be able to see was football, basketball, baseball for the summer, and usually track and field. Those are the big four that you really dealt with within Baltimore. So now, after working within different places in the United States, Minnesota, Colorado, California, and New York, like seeing how it's still kind of stayed stagnant. It's weird to say like it's grown. You have more access visually. You can view it on TV. You can be able to access a lot of different things. But association wise, youth club wise, unless you have an in with some of these clubs, it's hard really to get kind of into it. It's kind of like a charter school. Like you have to have kind of the access and the in to be able to get into it. So
When you say in, like are you talking about like infrastructure in or like knowing someone in? Like when you
knowing
say
Rich parents in.
knowing someone in, yeah.
okay,
Yeah. But that's only due to my time working within US youth club soccer for as long as I did. So it could have changed within the last 8 years that I've been out of it. But even back then, when I was starting to do a lot of grassroots effort within New York, I worked within all of the Long Island clubs to get them to your Cosmos matches, and then subsequently to the International Champions Club matches, which are now kind of being pushed more with the NYCFC teams. So seeing where it was going to like Oyster Bay for a weekend to try to get their club teams out, going all the way out to Hempstead, going out to just different parts of Long Island, spending long hours, getting to meet people in the community, and you're still seeing some of the dads, some of the business owners that they were middle to upper middle class, so you had lower class families that were still trying to understand where the access points were, where to be able to get onto travel teams, things like that. They had a hard time really understanding until like someone from the youth club was able to speak with them to be able to help their situation out. But other than that, access was kind of limited back when I was truly in the weeds of it. Now it may have changed, brother. I would love to hear where you are seeing where the changes
yeah, no,
are.
I think it's good to hear your side. And I think when you talk about the acronyms of US Youth, US Club, AYSO, Say Soccer, like you sometimes really don't even know who they are. You just know who you pay your bill to and who you're registered with, and then you go play.
Yeah,
Sometimes you wouldn't even know, like if you're a part of a team, you sometimes don't even know the club, but sometimes you know the team, the club, and maybe the league, right? And I think there's still that next level is it who's under, and then there's more layers and layers until you get to US soccer.
very
So
convoluted.
I feel like the whole education of that has become so much more difficult to understand. And a lot of when we talk about youth participants and subscribers, I use that word subscribers because they are subscribers now. They have to subscribe to everything to keep up with the Joneses and it does go back to what PJ said. It's like, is it for people that can afford it? That's another conversation. Here's what I wanted to bring up today, and obviously talking about Tom and hoping that he can help grow this game. When you have certain leaders at the helm, there's obviously an opportunity for things to happen. And this can be an opportunity where US youth that's been around since, 70, whatever, and US club that's been in inception, not as long as US youth, but they're going in these ways where, US club kind of took off and started to focus on more of the competitive competition pathways. And US Youth had kind of been the game for everyone. It was the game for all kids, right? So that has changed a lot. And with Tom being at the helm is an opportunity to bring, I don't, I want to be optimistic. So I wouldn't say they're going to come together and we're going to have some new badge and, flavor of the month and everyone's going to love it. I'm not saying that, but I do think there's opportunity for from the key touch point areas. First one will be obviously players and player development. The other one will be parent education, obviously, that goes into deeper into sidelines, and then you obviously have referee development, and then obviously you have coaching education. Just those four prongs you can take, and it doesn't matter what organization you are, you're still combating, and I use this word strongly, combating them every day. Like parent sidelines You hear it all the time in the youth space. They're out of control. The US club and US youth can come together and create whatever that education is or standards or whatever that looks like. And again, same with referee development. There's something that I heard from a colleague at MLS now that I work with, Luis Robles. He always talks about being laser focused, right? Like stand above the noise and being laser focused and doing what matters. And I think hopefully, those four areas I just shared, Tom can have that opportunity to address it on the USU side. And obviously my heart is obviously with the USU side just because that was my place of employment. I grew up with ODP and Sam Snow giving me my national youth license once upon a time when it was in existence. So, I have really good friends at US Club and colleagues at US Club that I've had to work with over the years. But I just think it's an opportunity with the World Cup coming. Guys, like, you always talk about the time is now. But we'll see. Look, I think it's good for youth soccer that these things are happening. I just hope that we could talk about Club World Cup today. We talk about the World Cup coming. We talk about all these things. We can't keep missing these opportunities, man. We just can't. We gotta be able to create history. And if we're not creating history, then it's a tough conversation to have with our kids and our grandkids, right?
For sure. I mean, some of the points that you made definitely about trying to marry the two together with US youth and US club. I think that has always really frustrated me when we had Jeremy Ibobasi on. He also talked about his youth development, how he started off with indoor futsal and then he switched over for full time outdoor. And he's a Maryland guy, just as me. He was talking about like some of the different clubs in Silver Spring, and I was just like, how hard was it when you left just your bubble of Silver Spring? He started to see some of the players in Virginia and whatnot. He was like, wow, some of these guys are like really good. Like he was able to stand up in his own, but like, do you feel as though when you get out of US Youth and you get into club, do you filter out some of the players that can actually play, or do you feel as though it's too much of an overcoaching issue as well, or do you feel as though like the way that the game is being taught on that level, because it's all psychological too with a kid trying to get into it. And if it's this much access within the United States, it's got to be sometimes really frustrating for like the actual player to kind of get stuck in with it.
Yeah, no, that's obviously like a fully loaded discussion where there's so many touch points where we
Yeah,
talk about player development pathway. Clubs have different styles, right? And then when you obviously are part of it, like PJ was talking about earlier, you go play for this one club and it's like all the rich kids. And then you have one club that you just say is all the players that are athletic or these guys like to play possession. But then there's also the other side of it where it talks about resources.
yeah,
And resources meaning, the facilities, the access to the game, the uniforms, who they're playing, the shiny badge. So that dictates a lot of those conversations. And I think one of the things I'm starting to tell players, and it's a different generation. I'm not talking about age. I'm just talking about the generation of the game. Okay. It's not about age. We have to continue to expose players to everything possible because they're only going to learn from the exposure.
very true.
So going back to what you said, if they went to a club team and they had to go to Virginia, go. If that means you're going to be exposed to some, go. If that means you go back to Maryland and you're playing on a Sunday team and a Wednesday team in Virginia, go. We just don't want kids behind the windshield longer than the game, right?
Very sure.
but exposure is huge. I think the less exposure, it's harder to deal with the things that you're going to face even as an adult, right? The more you interview for jobs, the more you'll be successful at getting a job. The more you go from the marketing department to the operations department, you're exposing yourself to be a wise person, just like a player. Midfield, you play striker, you play defense. Obviously, the hands are different, but again, it's continuing to expose players. And I think the biggest thing we can do as we watch some of these relationships form is just making sure we keep it about the player because all the other stuff will sort itself out. Like, I'll be gone, someone will take my place, there'll be a new guy in town, whatever. But it's being able to make sure that we continue to talk about pushing players and pushing their development. Last night I had dinner with a player that I coached, very young player, and she was going from one club to another and They talked about the reasons why they were going, and I was just like, I'm just happy I'm here with your journey. And she wrote me a letter, and I told her it teared me up when she wrote me this letter, and she was just like so excited to go on this next journey. And I told her, look, new club, new challenges. It's all about you now, right? And just you enjoy the memories you had and move forward, right? Because I ain't gonna sit there and say, hey, you shouldn't change clubs, or you know, the grass ain't green on the other. Like, we can go through that conversation.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to get her mentally prepared on walking into a new locker room, a new coach, a new environment, right? Well, even a different uniform. She went from maybe a Nike cut to an Adidas cut. You know? Like, you know, like those things
That's a
that
different
happen, right?
feel, yeah.
Gotta be
It's a whole
swag.
other feel. You know what I'm saying? You went from wearing green to red, from yellow to purple, you know?
I feel it.
So I just think the biggest thing, like, we're a part of this game and we get caught up in all the X's and O's. And I think we've got to spend so much more time just making sure the player's prepared. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to pay and subscribe $50 to a mental health coach, $20 to a strength and conditioning coach. You know how it goes. I'm just being real.
These numbers are going up.
Yeah.
If I ever have a kid and I'm trying to put them within the football, I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, I'm really looking at it.
Well, Marley, when we've kind of like danced around it, but I wanted to hear your perspective, how it is today, at least in your area. Like, I think one of the most interesting discussions in professional sports, everyone likes to say, is imagine if like LeBron James was goalie and Christian McCaffrey was like a winger, and like just making the game more accessible for people. Do you see, at least in your area, that? Because, a lot of people when I was younger played youth, but then the club would be like $300 and they couldn't afford it. The game becoming more accessible to more people, especially as kids get older and like historically would play soccer when they're younger and start to drop out. What are you seeing in your area? Because you have a very large area that you work with, so it's a pretty good sample size.
Yeah, no. I think what I will tell you, and this is something that we need to just take a deep breath on, I think the access to sports has become a lot greater than it used to be. And I think, here in Northern California, I could walk out of my house and, believe it or not, nearly every day there's a group of people playing cricket, right? And, you hear about people playing volleyball at their middle school, So I think when you talk about sports, we're a part of the country where, in my opinion, you can play sports almost 12 months out of the year. So I'll just use Minnesota because he said it, like, you're not playing 12 months out of the year outside. You could be playing 12 months of the year, but I'm talking about outside. So when we talk about soccer and we talk about the access to the game, there's a lot of access to the game. I think it just really hinders about the home environment and the resources a family has to get maybe a child to a game, to a practice, the cost of a uniform, like the fundamentals. But I think that comes to any sport, right? If they want to go play, lacrosse or volleyball, you still have to get sometimes to and from. I think, if we was to take a blank canvas and maybe look at doing this again, we may not need to have kids transport after school to a new location because 90% of the schools in this country have a playground, have some kind of sports field. So our monies could go into kids staying in the same facility they go for their education and then doing the physical education stuff after school if they choose to, with qualified coaches, qualified referees, which this probably could be a whole nother podcast, right? By the
I
way.
was literally
Yeah, we
about
gotta
to
get the
ask you
coach
a
for that
question.
section.
I was about to drive us that way, so you took it already. But I wanted to get your thoughts on San Diego FC because they're doing this exact same thing
Yeah,
now down in
I
San Diego.
engaged with one of the leaders that was very instrumental in getting some of that going for San Diego FC. He's actually moving back up to the northern part of California, and he told me when he leaves San Diego, he's gonna connect with me. But he looked at a lot of different MLS, like the Union have their set up, right?
Yep.
A lot of RSL. Once upon a time it was weird. RSL was actually housed in Arizona for their youth academy, right?
Yep.
But it was a great thing, and credit to all the people that worked in the RSL academy, and now it's obviously housed in Utah, which is cool. But I think the San Diego concept is awesome, and the reason why I say awesome is because it goes back to something that we talked about earlier in the Messi conversation. The fact that we're now saying that we have youth housed in academies or can be in a facility and go to school and play soccer all in one conversation, it's cool, right? Unless you go to Texas and you're playing in an American football program where, Texas football is Texas life.
Yeah.
Like I went to Indiana and saw some family up there, and I was like, man, this high school campus is better than some college campuses,
Yeah.
right? And they live in a part of town that's historically pretty wealthy. But the point is, if we could get soccer, especially on the MLS side, having those types of conversations, the pipeline of players becomes night and day. And I give a lot of credit, not just because I'm working with MLS closely now. I've always been, back in your days, I've always worked closely with folks at MLS. It's funny, I was actually on the phone with Nick LaBroca today. I was like, blast from the past, man. It was crazy. I was on the phone with LaBroca, but the point is that we're funneling more players with the MLS program, with Next and Pro, into that funnel. And I think something that PJ was saying, could you imagine like if LAFC really did get far in this competition? Not to say they need 40 million to buy the next player, but that 40 million, I'm sure they could shave off a Starbucks coffee and take care of their youth academy. And don't you think, PJ, though, that could help them, though?
Yeah,
That would totally help them, right?
it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, well,
It definitely wouldn't hurt. No.
yeah. So going back to what you're saying, I think at the end of the day, having any MLS franchise do a concept that's unique or copy and paste it, right? It makes it cookie cutter. That's great for the game, seriously.
Completely. And PJ, if you don't really know about San Diego FC, they have coming out this fall, 2025. They have San Diego FC's Right to Dream Academy. It's fully funded, free residential program, school and football academy. So if you think of, like Marley said, like going to Texas, you have like this amazing academy space. IMG Academy is another thing that you could kind of pull and see what this used to be. IMG Academy that was in Florida would take some of the best athletes around the United States, house them, and be able to play different sports that they're looking for. Specifically with San Diego FC is where they get to be a preferred landing spot for a lot of players within the SoCal scene, but as well due to that FIFA ruling, they're able to try out players to have Mexican players come up above the border to play in San Diego as well and
Get some
get
dual
housing
math.
and have essentially a pipeline of both you and Mexican players be a part of it. I think it is a very rare and very amazing opportunity. I know that they had around 4,000 tryouts over the summer. I know more kids are still trying out to be able to be a part of the residential programs. It's pretty dope opportunity seeing like where football has kind of started and where it's growing within this country. Now you're going to have kids that are kind of just pampered. Okay, like you are coming to get both the school experience, the football experience, and the life experience. You get it all here.
And
It's
those players feed into San Diego. Like the plan is for them to
100%,
be
yeah.
playing for their San Diego.
Yeah, they can play for San Diego's U.S. like the MLS team, but then as well, if they don't make it, just like over in Europe or other parts of the world, if they don't make it there, they could also go to other clubs. Like you know how much the MLS does love to make sure that their pipeline is taken care of, and the talent is taken care of within the United States, and then if they're not, if they kind of fall through the cracks, there's always like a new story that pops out about like this player was a part of, let's go with Inter Miami's youth academy, but then he kind of fell out. But we found him now. He's in the second division of Spain playing. Like there are always small stories and tidbits that come out like this. Hopefully, with this new plan with San Diego FC's academy, like you can start seeing more of that staying within the team, especially if you're going to try to grow homegrown first, which I truly love about this entire project. Homegrown, you're giving people a chance to, if you're not within the best financial situation, you're trying to still give the best actual academic opportunity as well as long with the sporting opportunity. This program could also help out there. So I'm loving it. I'm kind of beaming about it.
Yeah,
So
you're right. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's cool. So I think like PJ, I would encourage you to like take a look at some of that stuff because I think you'll be amazed how far the game has come. Even
yeah,
just like what you were talking about being in Boston and stuff. There's a lot going on, and as much as it's going in different directions. I was talking about this with E today. Like it's not that everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel or
yeah,
whatever. I look at it now as just People just look at it through their lens, wanting to do it their way. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I just wish they would always keep an open mind at any point, like a train. Open those doors, let people come in, and then let people come out. But the trains just keep moving. But if the train don't stop, then kind of sucks, right? So I feel like the game's healthy. It's not healthy to our expectations. Don't get me wrong, but the game is definitely doing its thing, and there's a lot going on. I want to see more of this, the San Diego's and the Philadelphia Unions. Like I was spent a lot of time in Colorado, and you know this, Eli. Could you imagine if, well, we don't want to talk about owners, but if Cronky did spend the money,
right?
could you imagine what he could
Same with
build
the
out there
Reds.
in Commerce City? And it's
Same
not
with
like yeah, PJ,
The infrastructure is
you know what I'm
there.
talking about, right? It's not like you couldn't do it. Like it's there.
The
Right?
infrastructure is there. Like Commerce City, all of the
Commerce City will
stores
give you the tax breaks.
yeah,
They'll be
they
like,
need it.
yeah, go ahead, build that there.
They need it. They
They
need
need
it.
it.
Completely agree with you there. PJ, any last questions before we close this one out?
Yeah, I mean, to wrap it up, I want to just go broad here and ask Marley, since you got involved with youth soccer in America, broadly speaking, are we heading in the right direction? I think we are, because, we've seen the players that we've developed, but, what are your just like broad takeaways?
Whoa. That is a huge, yeah, I see he's,
Going easy today.
when you say right direction, PJ, I got to be careful with that because I think there is a direction I totally am happy with. No, but I have a level of expectations where I want to see the game develop and grow personally, professionally. There's obviously things that we can do to go in that direction, which we can all come together. But I think it's really understanding what is our direction. If we understand what our direction is, then it's easier. I'm not saying that our soccer needs to be a dictatorship. You know, you go to Brazil, you go to Iceland, you go to certain countries, and there's one pathway, one channel, and you all have to fit into it. So, I'm going to use your word direction, PJ. I think the game is alive and well and it is growing, but are we all in one direction together? No. And I think that's probably where my passion comes in. I think that, you talk about where MLS are, they're in one direction. The Women's League are in one direction. US Soccer Federation is the umbrella and they have a direction. And then you have all these youth entities, they go in different directions. So it's good to see that we have lots of brands, lots of opportunities, lots of places we can go. But it would be good to sometimes just be a fan and beat to the same drum, walk down the same alley, wear the same shirt, and that is what I'd love to see. But hey, I don't know if it's going to happen here anytime soon. So I'll
So do you
continue to
think
be
we're
a
better off
fan, a
than
coach,
15
a
years
player,
ago?
everything.
That's
What's
what I
that?
want to know. Are we better off than 15 years ago when you started? That's
Yes,
what I
yes.
want to
So
know.
if you want to ask me that question, then I'll
Makes me
say
feel
yes.
good.
Yeah, you can feel good about that.
That's a hell of a way to end this up, but I want to give so much thanks to a friend of the show, Marley Wilson over here. Always thank
Thanks.
you again. How can people be able to find you? How can they reach out to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best place to find me these days. Obviously, we have Facebook as well. But check me out on LinkedIn, Marley Wilson, and I'll be the first and only person that comes up for you.
Much appreciated. Well, yeah, from Dem Boys Watch Footy, want to thank everybody today. Marley, PJ, it's your boy E. Thank you all again for giving us a listen. Have a great one.